Welcome to another episode from HenRefurb. This episode I'm going to restore all 4 brake units on the Dodge and then subsequently fit the front two to the front axle, and then I'm going to attach that to the chassis, meaning that by the end of the video we should have a chassis with 2 front wheels attached, which will be really cool because that will be the first actual assembly relating to the chassis that's happened since the full strip down ages ago, whenever that was. So stay tuned. I want to have a look at some of these drum brake assemblies now. Most importantly, the back plates, because obviously, specifically on the back wheels, this becomes part of the back axle. The oil seal actually sits the other side of this back plate to the axle itself. So really, in order to complete the back axle project properly, I could do with at least having these back plates finished ready. And then I can worry about just cleaning up the other brackets after, or maybe at the same time, because it's probably not much more work. These are quite simple. They're not in bad condition at all. They just need a good old clean and a repaint, basically. Okay, so I dismantled all 4 front ones and rear ones, and in the end they've all had a quick soak in the parts washer to get any grease and nasties off. This is what we're left with. This is the back plate unit, so this is as far apart as it can be made, taken apart. Yeah, it's not bad. Surface rust, no real pitting or anything like that. It's still got paint on it in places, so I'm just going to chuck this through the sandblaster and then stick some paint on it, and I'll do that with the other 3 as well. Whilst the back plates and all that are in the parts washer soaking, I've started the sandblasting process, but there's a few greasy patches on them that need dealing with. I've just done these 2 other brackets which are from the front 2 back plates, so I thought I'd get these sandblasted and painted up while I was waiting. Okay, so this is the first one of the brake back plates out of the sandblaster, so I'm just going to stick some primer on that to make sure it doesn't go rusty now, and then I've got the other 3 still to do. Cool, well that should do the trick for now, and then I'll worry about making it look pretty later on once I've done the other 3. So I've just finished sandblasting the second rear back plate, and my god, does it look clean or what? Even got in all the way inside all of those gaps and whatnot. Anyway, they're coming up really well. They're in really good condition, which is nice given the age. So I'm just going to get some primer on that, and then we'll paint them all up at some point. Right, well I've got 1, 2, 3 back plates in primer. The 4th one is already finished and painted. I had some paint left over when I was doing the rear axle, so I just sprayed that one. I'll show you that at some point. But these ones have come up really, really nicely. They look superb, so I'm just going to get some gloss on them at some point, and then that'll be done. So moving on now to let's see, what have we got? These grim looking things, which are the slave cylinders. There are 4 of them. I think all 4 of them are exactly the same. Just going to strip them apart, clean them, paint them and put them back together. As I understand it, the owner before me had the brake system overhauled, and it's not actually ever been driven, so all the rubber parts, seals, pistons and a few other bits are they've rebored them and put new sleeves in and things like that, so they're in really good condition. They're just filthy and rusty, so I'll blow the rust off, paint them, and they'll be good as new, hopefully, and then we can put all the braking units back together. Okay, so this one is the rear right-hand brake cylinder. As you can see, it's taped up from where I sandblasted the rear axle, and I didn't want anything to get in, but that's sort of irrelevant now because I'm going to strip them down and clean them thoroughly. So you've got rubber seals on the ends. The rubbers are in damn near perfect condition. It's just there's a load of rust inside them there that just needs washing out properly. The actual cylinders aren't looking bad at all. Just going to get that rubber off there. I'm going to say this one's got some rust ingress down inside the piston, but presumably it's actually quite gooey. Yeah, that's actually just rust dust that's got in there from somewhere else and has just glued itself in, so that'll clean up and look like new. So I've just got to take these out, and then the pistons should drop out because there's a spring pushing outwards on the two pistons. So once I release the pressure by taking either the bleed nipple or this out, then the pistons should let go. Either that, or I just bash them straight through and out the other end because they go all the way through. And then it's just a case of cleaning. Quick sandblast, get the rust off the body of it, and then yeah, that's basically it really. Clean and put them back together. Just realised I lied slightly. I need to sandblast these first before I take them apart, because with all of the screws in and the rubber caps on, it means I can sandblast everything without any sand getting anywhere important, and then after I've sandblasted it I'll strip them down. So I'm just going to bung the rubber caps back on, and then I'll sandblast all of the cylinders in the sandblaster, and then I'll strip them down and clean them up. That's the first one done. Do the other three and then we'll strip them down. The ends are still very, very slightly rusty, nothing bad. I'm just going to whiz them with the bench grinding wheel, as in the wire brush. Okay, there's those four painted. So I stuck the pistons back in to stop the paint from going down the inside of the bore, and then yeah, they're all done. So when they're dry we'll put some gloss black on them so they match the rest of all of the brake stuff, and I'm going to carry on cleaning up all of these. I've just whizzed all the grease nipples so they're all nice and shiny again, and I'll clean up all the other bits, wash all the rubber bits, and then they'll be good to reassemble before long. And now I've done all the rubber bits, so I've taken these in, actually just took them into the house where it's nice and warm, and I soaked them and washed them in warm soapy water and scrubbed off all the rust, and they all just, they look like brand new. They're shiny and clean on the inside and just immaculate. So yeah, a whole pot, I think there's 8 of those in total, and that's them done. So basically that's the restoration complete. Just got to finish with the gloss on these, and then I can put them back together and stick them. Well, I've got to finish the back plates first, which are also ready for gloss paint, so I'll do all the gloss paint, and then it can all be stuck back together, and that'll be nice. So these are the little I suppose banjo bolts where the brake fluid goes into the cylinders, and as you can see they're a little bit rough, so I'm just going to put them all in the lathe and reface them to get rid of that surface finish, and then I'll just clean the edges up and make them look a bit nicer. That will do the job nicely. Just going to clean them and put some paint on them at some point, but I'm not going to do that just yet. Next thing I'm going to have a look at is the actual brake shoes. I think they just need a quick dust and a wipe over, and that will do for those. 2 shoes, the 2 pins and a spring. Basically they're all fine. These just need a quick clean on the wheel because they're covered in gunk. And then these need just a wipe because they're just covered in dust where they've been sat around in the workshop since I took them apart, basically. So there's nothing wrong with them at all. They've obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the previous owner, probably over 10 years ago or something now, but he had the brakes overhauled but has never actually driven it. So I mean, it's probably done 200 miles on these brakes and that's it, and they've just sat around for a long time. So this is he never made them look pretty, he made them work. So the back plates and everything were really, really rusty, and you know, all the bits like these little brackets and stuff were covered in rust. So we're just getting it working and pretty all at the same time. Right, well that's those cleaned up. So, you know, as you can see, the pads are full thickness. You can actually see the wear on them, so, you know, there's barely even a patch of wear on these, they're so fresh. We've got the eccentric pins, which are for aligning these shoes within the drums, which is going to be a fun process. I'm not sure quite how I'm going to go about that, but we'll see. And then the spring, which looks nice. So they're all in this condition. I'm now just going to clean up the rest of them, and then all the braking stuff is done and clean, just waiting on the paint before I can put it all back together, basically. All of the bits are gloss black now. I'm just waiting for them to dry, and I've gone through and cleaned up and restored all of the bits involved in putting the brakes back together. So all of that's the lot. So once it's dry, we can reassemble everything. All the little slave cylinders are painted up now, and I've got the pistons out and cleaned them out, and I'm going to stick some paint inside the piston cups just to keep them from corrosion, because it seems that some gets in over the years, and if I stick some paint in there, it might just help a little bit for a little bit longer. All of the back plates are finished now. They look fine. Just got to finish cleaning up the brake pads, and then I can put the whole brake system back together, ready to go on the axles. That's one brake unit back together, ready to rock and roll. I mean, obviously it will need setting up once it's put back together. Once it's put back on the axle, there are cams down here and also in there that position the actual pads. You can completely position the pads just about anywhere to basically match the radius of the drum that's going on them absolutely perfectly. So there's a complicated setup process where you have to make sure that they're in the correct arc and position. But we'll get to that when we put the wheels back on, basically. Now I've just got 3 more to do. those are now all done, all 4 of them. So I think the next thing to do is fit these ones, the front ones, onto the front axle and see how that looks. So I just realised in order to put those back plates or the brake units back on the front axle, I need to make some gaskets for these things, which I believe are a sort of oil or grease catcher, so any like spray off from the bearings gets caught in this, and it's got a little drip tray or channel out the back that channels the drips out of the brake drum so they don't contaminate the actual shoes inside. Well, the back plates are on, both ends, and you also saw me put the wheels on. Well, I put one on camera and then I took it out here and put the other one because I wouldn't have been able to move it otherwise, it's so damn heavy. The reason I've put the wheels back on, despite the fact that they have yet to be restored, is because I want to get the chassis on wheels so that the chassis can actually be movable again. I've got so much stuff everywhere at the moment, it's making it very difficult to work around. So I figured if I get everything back on wheels and all the parts that I've just about finished back on the chassis, all the stuff everywhere will gradually start reducing, and then I'll have a bit of space to work with. The time has come at last to attach something to the chassis. Basically, what you see here, I've just floated it underneath the chassis, so there's nothing actually between that and the chassis at all. The leaf springs are all done, ready to rock and roll. I stripped them all apart and covered them in grease the other day, so they are lubricated now as per the factory spec, which is good. So yeah, just gonna dig those out and see if they fit, and then I can find out if my custom homemade shackles work properly or not. Wow, it looks so good. I've not seen this for a few months. Okay, so I got the spring on the axle and I put the pin in sort of halfway at the front, so it's attached at the front. I've got the bushers that I made in the back, so you've got the new, you can see there, that's the top piece and the spring, and then obviously this jobby goes in like that, and then there's a plate on the other side. I just can't get this through the holes. When I manufactured it, I figured I might have to stick a reamer through, because these bushers are quite tight, so I think they've squashed slightly, which means that this hole is now too tight for the pivot pin. So I'm going to just get a reamer and stick it straight through that hole, and then hopefully that will then slide in nicely. Oh man, that was a pain in the arse, but I win. So here goes the left side. There's my special shackle. They are tight, but that's a good thing because we don't want play in any of those. If they flop around, they're going to wear out. So the idea is that these shackles will literally just last forever. They'll outlast the truck, which means I don't have to do anything about them. They look nice. They'll do the job fine. And if one day, for whatever reason, I decide to restore the originals, these don't cause any damage or cause any changes to happen to the chassis or the springs. So these can be taken off and the originals can be put back on without a trace. So win-win all round, really. And there's the spring, the clamps on the lower axle, and then we've got the pivot point at the front. So this one took a little bit of a fight to get that to go through into the chassis threads, but got there in the end. I'm going to have to take this nut off and repaint it because that'll go rusty without paint on it. But otherwise, we're all good. So the chassis has front wheels, officially. You could use it as a wheelbarrow now. But hopefully next video we'll get the back wheels on too, then it'll be more like a rolling chassis than a wheelbarrow. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions or suggestions, pop them in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer. Otherwise, see you next time.